Today we are upgrading my ultimate custom watercolor palette to make it even better than before. So let's go ahead and roll that awesome intro. What's up guys, I'm J-Rod of battlebrawlerproductions, new channel. Welcome. We craft amazing comic book style illustrations through a variety of different mediums. Today is a special video because Coco just wants to be held all day today. I don't know why, but I'm really excited to make this video because I'm going to be upgrading my custom watercolor palette. I made this about a year ago, and while I still love it and I think it's a really good palette, I do want to upgrade it. Not only has my taste in colors, my style, my techniques, but also my palette has evolved and changed. There are far more colors that I use now that aren't in this set. Also, I've gotten more into tubes, as you can see, because I have a lot of tubes right here. I installed this pegboard so that I can display all my watercolor and gouache, so it's easier for me to see and pull. And what I found was I was actually pulling from this to do color mixing more than my palette. I think it's time I actually do a proper video upgrading this set. Now, if you have not seen the previous video, go check it out. It's of course linked somewhere on screen and in the description, but essentially this was a 52 palette set that I took all my Winsor & Newton and some of my metallics and skin tone sets and combined them into one refined palette so I could have them all there, at least all the colors that I use, and not have any duplicates to streamline my art process. I really don't like having multiple palettes on my desk, two at the most, one where my watercolors are and one that's my dirty palette or my mixing palette. And one thing I like about this set right here is that I have a mixing palette in here. Now, the first modification that I made to my palette was removing the pin holding this together so it's detachable. I also added a magnet so it can rest nice and clean right in here, so it's not only removable, making it easier to clean, but takes up less space on my desk so it doesn't affect my workflow. It also still closes really nicely, and I also added some stickers to give it a little more personality, something that was in the video. Not needed, but I really feel like it helps to make your water palette your own. I also got rid of the little loop that was here because I don't need my hand to be like that. Seriously, it's not needed at all. And if I do ever need more mixing room, I do have this little plastic palette that I talked about earlier, which is my dirty palette. This is where I keep a lot of my different tones together so I can just mix a little easier if I need to, but more than not, this is more than plenty for me to work. Now that's enough about this palette. Let's go ahead and talk about our colors. Now, I originally used 4 different sets to make my original palette, and that was a 46 Winsor & Newton Cottman set, a 24 Winsor & Newton Cottman set, a skin tone set, and a metallic set. Now, I could sit here and relist all the colors in the right order and quantity that I had in the original video, or I could just reuse the footage because I did such a good job with it the first time, I don't need to repeat myself. We're going to go off of that list and I'll explain what I removed and why I removed it, and what I'm adding and upgrading, and explain why along in the video so you can follow along. You can also follow along in making your palette by getting the tubes that I recommend and only getting the Winsor & Newton 46 palette. If you get that palette plus this container and those tubes, you can follow along completely, as you won't need the other palettes that I had in my previous video. Just wanted to let you guys know that. So let's go ahead and roll old footage. So starting from the top, we have lemon yellow hue, comboj hue, cadmium pale hue, cadmium yellow hue, cadmium orange hue, cadmium red pale hue, cadmium red hue, cadmium red deep hue, azalea crimson hue, permanent rose, light red, rose madure hue, purple lake, movar, I have no idea how to pronounce it, dioxide purple, ultramarine, cobalt blue hue, cerulean blue hue, turquoise, intense blue, Persian blue, indigo, intense green, viridian hue, emerald, hooker green deep, hooker green light, sap green, yellow orch, raw umbra, Van Dyke brown, burnt umbra, sepia, 7 select colors for my skin tone set. I do apologize I can't tell you which ones as they were not labeled, and I honestly kind of lost track of which ones were which. Gold, silver, lamp black, Pans gray, and Chinese white. As you probably noticed, this configuration is actually going to leave us 7 blank slots for duplicates. So I decided to double up on the colors that I know I love to use, such as lemon yellow hue, cadmium orange hue, cadmium red hue, cerulean blue hue, emerald, sap green, and of course black, because it's me. Now we got our original palette on display, let's go ahead and talk about the modifications, starting with what we removed, and that would be all of the duplicate colors. I found that I wasn't using these colors as much as I thought I would, and it was just kind of a waste of space so I can add more efficient colors into the palette. So I got rid of the duplicate colors of lemon yellow hue, cadmium orange hue, cadmium red hue, cerulean blue, emerald, and sap green. I also got rid of the Winsor & Newton Cottman dioxide purple, turquoise, both lamp blacks, azalea crimson, indigo, raw umber, Pans gray, all 7 skin tones, as not only
only did I find a higher quality, but also a much better space efficient alternative, and gold and silver, since I wasn't actually using those as much as I thought I would, and even moved all of my metallics into their own separate pan. Now for the fun and exciting part of this video, going through and actually upgrading and adding the new colors. I ended up adding 25 new additions to this palette, and this was a super fun process. I made sure to take notes of the tubes that I was using throughout the year to make sure that when it came time to update everything, I was ready to add those in with no hesitation, and making sure that these were colors that would be beneficial for my artwork. Starting with the upgrades, I upgraded Azalea Crimson and Pans Gray to Utrecht. They're a professional brand that has very minimal fillers, making them an ideal choice for upgrading. I also upgraded my Raw Umbra to a Michael Harding I got as a gift last Christmas. And I upgraded my original Winsor Newton Cotman Indigo to a Winsor Newton Professional Watercolor Indigo. This was a really solid choice because I really like indigo, but I wanted something just a little darker and a little richer that had better mixing, so going professional was a solid choice. Now for the brand new addition, starting off with French Vermilion by Les Aquarelles, and this is a really beautiful shade of red that I absolutely love to use. It's such a great red that complements so many other colors, so it had to be the first one to add. I also decided to go with Turquoise Green from Utrecht and added the rest of the Michael Harding collection I got for Christmas, that being Quinacridone Purple, Thylocyan Turquoise, and Moss Green. I also added a couple Daniel Smith colors, including Cascade Green, McCracken Black, Buff Titanium, Potter's Pink, and Phthalo Yellow Green, one of my personal favorite shades of green. From Holbein, I had to get the Juan Brilliant No. 1 and Juan Brilliant No. 2, the two best skin tones I've ever seen in watercolor form, and I absolutely love using them. I also decided to change it up a bit and add a little bit of liquid charcoal from Knitram. While this is more of a gouache-like material, I really do love the beautiful shades of charcoal that this color can get, and I thought it'd be really beneficial to add it to my palette. That way I don't have to keep squeezing it out of the tube, and can just have it separated for gouache work and have one separated for watercolor work, just to help with my workflow. And the rest of the additions come from Winsor Newton's professional line. Winsor Newton has a beautiful range of both student and professional watercolors that are super worth it, and I find that their quality on the professional brand is absolutely amazing and stunning. So I had to go with Winsor Orange, Winsor Deep Red, one of my personal favorite shades of red, Indian Red, Winsor Violet Dioxin, Burnt Sienna, and one of the strangest and hardest colors to pronounce, Caput Mortuum Violet, a great earth tone that is super versatile.
Now you're probably thinking the next step is to go ahead and fill our half pans with the new colors we added, but you'd be wrong. We're actually going to go a step further and label our half pans. Now normally I would recommend to use some type of acrylic or oil paint pen for this, as they're acid free, preferably oil because they're much more stronger, durable, and have a longer shelf life than acrylics. However, I found that the plastic surface was really difficult to write on with these, and what actually worked was a Sharpie alternative, which I'm not super happy with because these do have acid and can yellow over time, but I think with the plastic itself it should create a pretty solid barrier for the acid and it won't damage our paints. Either way, I'm gonna put a little bit of tape on the bottom of each one just to add a little bit of extra protection, and also a way to remove it if it ever gets too much. So let's go ahead and start labeling these. Now that we got all of our half pans properly labeled, we could go in and fill them with our tubes. Now we'll actually do this process twice. Once to get an initial fill, and then we'll take a smaller item like a Q-tip or a toothpick and we'll just run it through to get rid of air bubbles. After it dries, it will shrink, so we'll just top it off with a second layer. This process could take a little bit just because we have to make sure that everything's filled properly, we're being careful not to make a mess, and also the drying time of the paint. But after they're fully dry, they'll be ready to go into our new palette. So let's go ahead and get started because I can't wait to see this thing fully assembled. So here's our drying rack with all the colors that we'll be using. As you can see, some of them are just still a little too sticky and some of them got a little overfilled, but they will be dry shortly, hopefully within the next 2 hours, and we can go in and add them into our palette. Very excited, but this is the process that takes the longest because we are literally watching paint dry. No joke. Now we have plenty of sticky tack in our half pans that have plenty of time to dry. They are more than ready to be installed into our palette. Now, one thing I do want to note is the order of the colors that I chose. Not only did I make sure that my colors flow from one to the other, so yellow, orange, red, and so forth, I want to make sure that I had the lighter colors going to the darkest colors. This really helps with my workflow, and it's something that I paid a lot of attention to. If you watched the first video, you know this for a fact. I also like to keep more of my mixing colors towards the back of my palette. That being my sepias, my umbras, my siennas, more of those type of colors. Also in that same area will be my skin tones and my black, white, and grays. I find that having them in that order really helps with my workflow. So let's go ahead and get into the new proper order of these colors. Starting us off with lemon yellow hue, combo hue, cadmium pale hue, cadmium yellow hue, Winsor orange, cadmium orange hue, cadmium red pale, cadmium red deep, French vermilion, azalea crimson hue, Winsor deep red hue, light red, India red, Potter's pink, permanent rose, rose madure hue, purple lake, mauve, which by the way, thank you very much for Stars in Space for pointing out proper pronunciation
pronunciation. Really appreciate that. Quinacridone purple, Winsor violet dioxin, cerulean blue hue, ultramarine, cobalt blue, intense blue, indigo, Persian blue, thylocyan turquoise, turquoise green, phthalo yellow green, intense green, emerald, viridian, sap green, hooker's green light, hooker's green dark, cascade green, moss green, yellow orch, burnt sienna, raw umbra, burnt umbra, sepia, Van Dyke brown, caput motrium violet, Juan brilliant number 1, Juan brilliant number 2, McCracken black, liquid charcoal, Pans gray, buff titanium, and Chinese white, giving us a total of 52 colors for our palette. Let's go ahead and put them in. After double checking to make sure everything was in the proper order, I had the right counts, and everything was in place, I started assembling my palette. Now, if you're someone who wants to make your own palette, whether you're following me or you're just doing your own thing, I would recommend doing one of two things. Either use magnets or sticky tack to attach your half pans in your palette so they don't move around. The reason I recommend this is because if you don't, the little metal clips aren't perfect and they still can move and shift around, so the sticky tack really did a good job keeping everything nice and solid. Overall, super quick process that led to an amazing result, so let's go ahead and take a look at the final epic reveal. And here's our palette fully completed, and it looks amazing. I absolutely love all the colors. I love the new arrangement. I love what we added. I love what we upgraded. I love what we subtracted. I think this is really cool to visually show my growth as an artist, to show that I've refined my craft, that I've updated my palette, because my original palette was really good. I really like that palette, but now as someone who has more experience, someone who's been doing a lot more watercolor work, someone who understands the medium more, this really reflects my current level as an artist. The new colors, the fact that I'm not doing duplicates, my confidence in mixing colors, so only having 2 skin tones to mix everything. I love this palette. This was so much fun to do. This was so much fun to make. This is something that I want to keep doing. So in a year, maybe 2 years later, we're going to update this palette again to see how I have grown as an artist. I think that's going to be a super fun series on the channel where every so often we say, hey, we've grown more. What are some of the colors we're using? What are some of the techniques we're using? What colors do we need? And if you guys followed along and made your own palette, please let me know. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. What are some colors that you use in your watercolor work that many people don't, or what's a color that you think is really interesting and really fun? This was a really fun exercise. This is something that's been on my mind for a while that I absolutely had to do, and I want to thank you all so much for making it to the end of the video. So like I said, please let me know what you guys think of my palette. Let me know what you guys use in your palette, and then subscribe to the channel for more art and animation based content. Remember, I'm J Rod at battlebrawlerproductions. I draw a palette of my own, so I want to thank you all so very much for watching. You guys are the best. Seriously.